If we get the last unit done, all 4 units will be bringing in $10,000 a month. And the closing all in the same day again, because you see more problems when the house is actually empty. We had to pay the mortgage on our own, and we hadn't moved out of our apartment yet. I went through all emotions. I'm ready to be done with this. I want to sell the house.
So we're here today in Brooklyn. We're going to talk about this very unique house hack property in Canarsie, Brooklyn. We're talking to Jamel. Thank you so much for the hospitality.
Thank you.
You and your wife got into this. How long ago did you guys move in?
We moved into the property September last year.
So I appreciate you having us here to break down what a house hack project looks like, specifically a BRRRR Strategy deal, where people buy a property, they renovate it, they rent it out, eventually refinance, and then repeat the process over and over. And this is a pretty cool deal to talk about. It's interesting because on the way here, Joel and I were talking about somebody that he follows. It's like a fitness influencer.
Yeah.
And one of his sayings is live, learn, pass on. The cool thing about this era, I would say, is that this kind of information is available. In the past, people wouldn't really talk about this publicly, maybe not even privately. So the fact that you're living through this, you're learning from your experience, you're willing to pass on, something that we're really grateful for.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely can relate to that for sure.
Is there anything before you got into this that you saw, read, or heard online that made you interested in this strategy to begin with?
Yeah, definitely. Me and my wife were preparing to have our first child, so we just felt like we needed to do more than just work. Be able to create some income for ourselves. So we started to watch YouTube videos and attend some real estate and business event. And from there, we stumbled upon MG, the mortgage guy, videos on YouTube.
Yeah, and I follow him too.
Yeah, started checking him out. He was talking about the 4-3-2-1 strategy. 4 unit, then go for the 3 unit, 2 unit. And by then, the last you get your single family, you get your dream home last. By then you'll have 10 doors. So we went with that. We started to seek out agents around January last year. Found Jason and just was trying hard to find that 4 unit.
It's interesting in New York because the competition seems so different for each of those property types. 4 families, 3 families, 2 families. It seems like each of those property types have like their own unique circumstances, right? Like a lot of 4 families, you're dealing with properties that might not have any vacancies, you know, for you to be able to own, occupy. 3 families might experience some of the same. And then 2 families, you might be able to find them where it's like they're fully vacant. They might need a lot of work. And I feel like that's what you guys ended up with, right?
Yeah, we found a 2 family that had 4 units in it. This was the best route. It just felt easier to find. The 4 units were a bit difficult to find in New York. Thanks to Jason for finding it. By the time he found it, we had already looked at so many properties. I was just kind of over the process. I was ready to drop it and let it go.
How many properties do you think you guys saw?
I could say probably at least 10.
Okay.
We looked all over Bed-Stuy, Ocean Hill, Flatbush. But me and my wife, we had like our focus area that we really wanted to stick to. Make sure you have your focus. We wanted to stay in Flatbush within that area because that's just what we're used to when we first moved to New York.
Yeah.
We just tried really hard to stay within that realm of location. And the best route to go is to try to find something equal to find that 4 unit, because it can become tough if you try and hit every mark you want to get, but just gotta settle sometimes.
It's interesting how we start off with a set of criteria, and as you start searching, like you said, like 10 properties into your search, you probably started to cross things off your list. Can be flexible with this, maybe we don't need this, and then maybe you start to circle some of your non-negotiables where it's like, all right, but I have to have these certain things. And this property seemed to have a lot of value add components. What attracted you to this deal? What really stood out to you and your wife about it?
It wasn't attractive at first because it was in Canarsie, but what really attracted us is that we wanted to do the 4-3-2-1 strategy, even though it was a 2 family, but it had the 4 units in it. And we feel like it would be fine for us to be able to house hack, get the property, we live in it, and the tenants will be able to cover that mortgage. Eventually when we move out, we'll be in profit. It had everything checked off with the 4 units. We knew it needed work, but not to an extent, like after getting deep into the project, but we just rolled with the punches.
Yeah, I like how you put that though. You say that it needed work. When we talk to Jason, he gets graphic, talking about cabinets hanging off the wall on the 2nd floor. Is there anything that you think you guys were able to like look beyond that most first-time home buyers, most first-time investors might be scared of?
I feel like you never really know what you're getting yourself into until you like open everything up, like the walls, the floors. Throughout the whole process, we had an inspector come out and inspect the house. Like he inspected all the important things, like the electrical, the plumbing, the roof. We knew there was some things in his inspection report that needed to be fixed, but it doesn't really get into all the detail once everything gets open. The ceiling used to be popcorn ceiling, scraped off the ceiling. Contractor came up with the idea, it would be better just to rip everything down. When we did that, we noticed a lot of beams and joists were burnt. It was a past fire that the previous owner did not tell us about. So we just had to gear up and figure out what to do next. Working alongside the contractor, getting ideas from him. But things like that, you really won't know until you actually start to renovate.
I definitely want to talk about some of the things that you guys experienced during the renovation project, but just to take a little bit of a step back, do you remember what the process was like? Any details related to like analyzing the deal itself? So before you guys even closed, is there anything that you remember that stood out that you liked, or just anything in general when you guys were running numbers on it?
Originally, owner that was selling the house wanted the house for $935, but our strategy that we worked with Jason with was to do the inspection first to figure out what issues there presently are on the property, so we can kind of tackle down the negotiation of the house, bring it down based off of those findings in the inspection. And I feel like that was very beneficial, and we got the price down to $880. A two-family for $880, but actually has 4 units, and we feel like that was a great affordable price. Even when we were getting very close and very interested in properties, Jason, he recommended a contract to kind of give us a more detailed approach of what he think that the cost of the renovation might be. It was very helpful too to have somebody that works in construction already to give us like actual numbers of, hey, this needs to be fixed or this needs to be done, and that would kind of give us the mindset of how much money we need after closing.
How soon did you guys get the contractor involved? Was he showing up to like home inspection only, or did you guys get him into the property at any point before that?
So we had an inspector come out for 3 properties we were very interested in, and we will schedule the contractor to come at the same time as that, because it just made it easier to get everything done in one shot. So we don't have to keep bugging the seller about, hey, can we come in at this time and that, which we don't want to, you know, make the seller feel antsy or worried that people, they might be doing too much. So we just try to get everything done at one time.
And that's a good strategy too. Inventory's just been very low for like the last 3 years or so. You guys might be one of 5 people or 3 people that are seriously interested in this property.
I would never do a final walkthrough and a closing all in the same day again, because you see more problems when the house is actually empty. And at that point, you just feel like everybody's here, head to the closing table and get ready to sign. You know, we felt like the pressure of that we can do it and we can get this done. But I wouldn't advise doing a final walkthrough and a closing all in the same day. Just give yourself at least a day or 2 to decide what's going to happen next, what is going to be my breakdown with the contractor, his pricing for the renovations. And I feel like that would be the best way to do it.
So that extra day, it could give you some more time to maybe get more opinions from contractors, iron out the details with the contractor, maybe negotiate a little bit with them.
Exactly, because from there, that's when the contractor, he gave his full contract and how long the timeline would be for him to do the renovation. But I feel like doing it this way to give yourself like a day after the final walkthrough, maybe speak to another contractor, get other opinions coming in, because right after we closed, the work started the next day with that contractor.
And we could get into it because I feel like Jason brought something up as well. I don't know if you guys had spoken about it, but he had mentioned something along the lines of, if you had to do it all over again, you would have probably gone like the 203K route for 2 main reasons. One of them is you get to bake in like the renovation cost into the loan, so you don't have to be as cash heavy at closing or even after closing, get to save some of the money up front. But the other thing that Jason brought up that was pretty interesting, and I want to get your take on it, is being able to leverage the bank when it comes to dealing with the contractors, with the schedule, with the payout even, when they get paid at certain checkpoints of the project. Anything like that came up like afterwards? Like what was that conversation like with Jason, or what were those thoughts like afterwards?
The route that we took, we went the traditional FHA first-time home buyer route, which is the easiest route to get into, where you kind of can get an investment property at the same time. But the right way to do it, for sure, is you have to move in within 60 days and you have to live in the property for a year on FHA. Even if you are doing the renovations, I feel like FHA 203K would have been the best route. First closing, and we could just put a down payment based off of the renovation cost. But the route that we took is we just did the traditional FHA first-time home buyer, and we paid for all of the renovations out of pocket. That just made it a little bit tough because we had to pay the mortgage on our own, and we hadn't moved out of our apartment yet when we had closed.
So you were still paying rent at the apartment?
Paying rent and
getting ready to pay the mortgage
and
contractor. Contractor.
Yes, at the same time.
Triple threat, man.
Yes. If we would have did the 203K route, at least the bank mortgage financing would have handled the payments for the contractor, and we could have just had to focus on the mortgage at that point. But with this route, we just went with it. We were already in it, like no time to turn back. We just rolled with the flow. I feel like what I would have done differently with the cash route, pay the contractor upon work completion.
Instead of like upfront?
Yes. How the contracts work, we wanted to renovate the whole place, and he gives a date, his payment schedule. So we were paying the contractor $10K every single week, and he estimated the project to go for 3 months, for 12 weeks. So we just continued to pay $10K a week for 12 weeks. He expected that all the units will be done. But by the time we moved in, September 1st, only our unit was done, what we're gonna be living in, but not the 2 units that we wanted to rent out. And I feel like maybe potentially we could have moved on and went with someone else if we see like the production wasn't moving at the pace where the contractor expected to be, if we would have just paid upon project completion. So I feel like that would be the best route. After going through it, that's something that I learned.
You're not the only one. That's one of the things that's the most common when it comes to dealing with contract. It always takes longer than what was originally anticipated. anticipated, and it almost always seems to go over budget. What was the excuse for it? Is it like you had other projects, or?
I think the excuse was the house is just bigger than we expected. The contractor, he did the walkthroughs with us, he did the inspection with us, and he just kind of underestimated. We didn't understand, but I understood at the same time, like this is a big house and it's gonna take a lot of work. If you were to go over the time frame, a month is understandable. The contractor laid out for him to finish within 3 months. The project ended up taking 8 months. They were supposed to get out September 1st, but they officially got out the first week of February when the project started in June. Paying upon project completion would have moved the urgency, because if the contractor knew he hasn't gotten paid, if a certain thing hasn't been completed, you know, maybe he would have picked up the urgency. But if I'm consistently paying you $10,000 every week and you're only finishing one unit, you know you're gonna be okay, because you see Jamel is constantly paying you every week. Being able to set those boundaries and actually figuring out a detailed breakdown of what's going into the contractor's pay, because you know I end up buying things that thinking that's gonna be within the payment. Like if nobody ever tells you that you gotta go buy all the insulation behind the walls, you have to buy all the tile cement thin set that goes for tiling, or you have to buy all the wood for the hardwood flooring or laminate flooring. You have to buy all the plumbing materials.
You're paying the contractor. What's in the fine print is that like you have to pay for certain materials, like flooring material, insulation, things like that. That's not something that came up at any point. It's kind of like it came up down the road.
Yeah, in the original contract, the contractor said he would purchase all raw material, but it's nothing specifically stating what raw material is. I feel like what would be helpful is to get a full breakdown of what the contractor is actually buying and what what I am actually paying for.
And that's fair, because I feel like that adds a level of transparency where, all right, you can tell me what you're paying, but that doesn't mean that I'm completely clear on what it is that I gotta pay for. I wanna break for a second though, because we got somebody here who actually used to work for a contractor.
Oh, really?
What's up, man? What's the deal? Have you ever had an experience where like the project went exactly as planned for budget, or does it seem like to fluctuate?
I think it's more on the manpower. To tell you the truth, from what I've seen from a lot of different contractors, is that they probably, you know, they could promise you the world. You know, I think they can promise you everything, and then they'll give you, show you, and then kind of like, all right, I got this other job too. So they'll probably send 2 other workers for one job. And then, you know, at first you have 5, 6, 7, let's say even 10 workers, depending how big it's a company. And then out of nowhere, it's like you only have two workers or 3 workers, because you also need to show then the other people that you have all these workers over here. Misconception.
So like the staffing, the manpower, that's like a big
factor. Yeah, because a lot of times it's just, if you have 5 people working in this room, this guy is putting up the sheetrock, the other guy is plastering on this side or whatever it is, you know, you're getting things done. But if you only have one guy here, one guy on the other side of the house, so how much can you do as a one person? You know, let's say somebody that's putting up a sheetrock. It's great to work with 2 people, because both of you will put it up. You know, one of you gonna hold it, other guy's gonna nail it, and then one person just putting the whole entire sheetrock by himself and nailing everything. You know, it takes more time, more effort, more, you know.
Makes sense. So I know this is not gonna be like your last.
That's exactly what.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it started off with like 5, 6 guys, but throughout the whole project, you might come in here one day, it might be 2 guys in here working on 1 unit, but we had like 3 units to work on throughout the whole project, and he's still saying it's gonna be done. But that wasn't the case.
Yeah. We mentioned the BRRRR strategy before. The last R is to repeat, and I know this is not your first and last, there's gonna be another. What are some things that you would wanna include in the contract in the future? Even though you live here and you're house hacking, at the end of the day, this is a business, and one thing that helps a business thrive is standard operating procedures, an SOP for whatever it is that we do in our business. It helps us do things like more efficiently, more quickly in the future. And I feel like this education that you just got, you can't get it on a course, you can't find it on YouTube, you can't find it in a book, even though these things are like outlined in all of these resources. With regards to the construction side of things, is there anything that you think you would want to put into those contracts in the future based on like what we've been talking about?
Yeah, I can name a list of things, but what would I do differently is create payment upon completion of project, have a full breakdown of what me, the customer, has to buy and what the contractor has to buy, a breakdown of what the contractor is picking up and what I'm picking up, because I have a small 2017 Volkswagen Tiguan and I'm carrying 5 doors for the apartments and toilets and tubs and the back of my car, you know, it doesn't add up. I'm putting a lot of weight on myself. And U-Hauls to go pick up flooring, go pick up tile. So, you know, just to have a full detailed breakdown of every single thing, what's needed to buy, because a lot of things came out of nowhere that wasn't expected. So if I can just have like the full scope of work aligned with what a customer needs to buy, will be very helpful in the future. And I feel like it can run a whole lot smoother if I implement some of those.
That brings me to another question. It's kind of interesting because if you have to rent a U-Haul truck for a couple of hours, or have to go pick up doors and the toilet, and you have to pay for those things and throw them in your car and transport them, the number on the receipt is not the entire cost. We have opportunity costs. If all of that stuff took you an extra 4 hours, like your time is worth something. Now we got to tack that on. Your time in terms of like what you could be doing with that time. If you were looking for another investment property in Florida, that 5 hours or 6 hours in time spent could be finding your next deal. I think it's good that you bring that up. I appreciate you sharing that, because going back to what Joel said, just having like skin in the game, learning that stuff and passing it on. I think passing it on is huge. You have a son, man. Like your son is going to see what you're doing, whether he sees it in the next 10 years or 15 years after. Like in my case, I didn't realize my dad was a house hacker until I was 20 something years old. It hit me. I'm like, oh wow, my dad house hacked for a while, right? All that to say, like, I appreciate you sharing all this stuff. And I'm curious to see how this plays into your next deal. For the next property, would you go for like that $800,000 property where you have to put in all this time and sweat equity? Or would you go for like that $1.1, $1.2 million property, move-in ready?
No, originally we wanted to do the 4-3-2-1 strategy, but we're growing. We have another addition to the family. We're gonna have another child. We think we want to skip the steps a little bit and go get our one family house, our dream home, just for the family, and then come back to investing next, just to get a breather from like everything that we've been through the past year. Figure out what we want to do next. Throughout this process, I just learned a lot, figure out a lot of things. I even started rocking compound myself just to get things done faster. I know that this side of the industry is not something I want to do on a day-to-day basis. We're definitely interested in refinancing and being able to continue to invest. It's the smartest thing to do with the funds. Moving forward, I am interested in becoming a mortgage loan officer, just to be able to help people secure financing for properties and figure out what steps to take and what not to do based off of my mistakes. It's gonna be my next step moving forward.
It's another way to pass it forward. You know, this kind of experience is nothing like what I've ever heard from a mortgage loan officer. You're gonna be able to share stuff that they probably only heard maybe once or twice on YouTube, that now they're gonna be able to hear like in depth, and maybe that end up being your top product that you recommend. I spoke to a mortgage officer 2 days ago. He was talking about early on in his career with one of the banks that he worked with, one of his niches was working with people taking out construction loans, 3K loans. I could definitely see that part of your future, and it's kind of interesting how it all comes full circle.
I just want to give my experiences to somebody else and help them like not make the mistakes that I've done, and just be able to give the full breakdown of what's to expect. Like if you're interested in doing something like this, I just want to be able to give full detail on how it is, because I've actually been someone who have done it. So I feel like that's gonna be my approach for sure.
So I know we're gonna talk a little bit about filling the vacancies and getting all that you can out of this cash cow here, but I gotta be honest, man, I'm pretty hungry, man. You mentioned there's a spot nearby we could check out.
Yes, I'm definitely hungry. Definitely would like you to try my spot around the corner. Tastes delicious. They have really good patties.
Let's go. We talked a little bit about like what you learned throughout the whole construction project, what you're gonna do after this property. Before we move on, we gotta start making some money here, right? And you've invested a lot into ways to maximize your rental income in this property. What are some things that you guys have taken into account to really maximize the income here in this property?
Weigh out all of your options, figure out what's gonna work best for you and your family, whether it be short-term rentals or mid-term rentals or regular tenants, or even taking advantage of a city program. With those type of things, just figure out what works best. Also be patient when it comes to screening tenants, because you also want to make sure you choose the right people that are fit for your unit, because you don't want to deal with any issues that may arise later. So just being very particular and strategic in your choices be very beneficial, and you can choose whatever route you want. You can also use an agent to assist you to help find tenants, or you can do it yourself.
What are some of the platforms that you're looking into? Not to put my agents out of business, but let's be honest, there are some tools that are available to landlords that helps them kind of have like a more seamless process. And you mentioned putting up sheetrock, up before, so you already have that do-it-yourself mentality, which is great. I feel like there are a couple of platforms out there that allow landlords work a little bit more efficiently and have more control over like the tenant screening process. What are some of the platforms that you're using now to help get you some traction as far as potential tenants?
Definitely the construction side of the property taught me not to wait on anybody. If you want to get something done, you definitely got to do it yourself. An agent is definitely very more beneficial as well because they have a huge network of people that can assist you. But if you just want to get it done yourself, for someone like me who has put in a lot of time with renovations and you want to save a little bit on the cost, you can list yourself. In New York, they have a platform called the Listing Project where families that own real estate can list, and they put your property in a weekly newsletter and email it out to people that may be interested, and you can show on your own. That's one route that we're interested in. And we're interested in city tenants, which can be very beneficial for someone because the city will pay you consistently, because you might not run into that issue of a tenant maybe stop paying you rent. The city pays you consistently, and they also can give you up to 4 months rent up front. So that's some of the things we looked into throughout the process.
Now with those 4 months up front, I know we deal with stuff like this with closings where sometimes money is held in an escrow account, sometimes it's held in an account that accumulates interest. Have you looked into that process as far as like those 4 months up front? Is that like cash in your pocket? Does it have to be held in like a third-party account? How does that work?
Yeah, for my upstairs unit, we want to charge $2,700, and my downstairs unit, we want to charge $2,500. But with the city, they pay you a little bit more. The person that has the program within the city has a voucher. So one unit will get $3K, the next unit will get $2,700, and that will cover a portion of utilities. And some work out, they have to pay their own utilities. Once the city pays you the 4 months up front, you hold 1 month as a deposit. Once the tenant moves out, if there are any damages, city holds that deposit in escrow, and then you get that out and replace any damage if the tenant moves out and damages the property. But the remaining 3 months goes to me, the landlord, up front in cash.
Nice, that's huge. And the cool thing with this project is that when we're talking about value add here, those are just two additional units here. You're also working on another unit that'll help this function more like a 4-family. What do you anticipate bringing in as far as rental income for that other unit?
If we get the last unit done, all 4 units will be bringing in $10,000 a month.
That's huge. And if we take your unit out of the equation for now, because you're currently living here, you'll basically be living for free. I mean, you'll be paying expenses and maybe a small portion of the mortgage. And by small portion, we're probably talking about less than $500 a month.
It'd be roughly around $500, $600 a month. And then the only thing we'll have to worry about is the water, which we include for the tenants and us as well, because we're in the building. And then we have our own electricity, and that's the only thing I worry about because all the other expenses are into the mortgage.
I mean, we live in New York. You and your wife have lived in Brooklyn for some time. Your unit is probably about 1,200 square feet. I don't think I've ever seen a place that you can pay $500 a month.
So a lot of times, apartments in New York, you either don't get a closet, no living room space, the kitchen is in your living rooms. Unit is definitely huge, and we also have the backyard as well. So this is definitely an advantage in Brooklyn for sure.
The space that we're sitting in right now, it's only a third or a quarter of your entire living room. This is a pretty large space here.
Yeah, it is.
When you guys move out, would you consider adding another bedroom to this space? I know that's one thing that Jason brought up, and Jason's probably not going to sleep until he hears that you're really trying to maximize the income here. Is that something you guys have thought about as well?
Yeah, we definitely thought about it. If I do it, I'd probably get some family help to assist me with doing it, just because I feel like I spent enough with contractors over the past year. So it's going to be me back at it with YouTube, family help. One of my units actually sanded down the walls, painted, put up some doors and things of that nature. So it will definitely be me figuring it out if we're going to go ahead and do that.
I love that. And the cool thing about this is we've had a pretty good conversation here, but we didn't talk about the benefits until the end. I feel like a lot of things that are sold to everyone is that like, this is quick and easy. You know, we can do this very quickly.
Nothing quick.
There's a lot of work. They put a lot of elbow grease into this, but the benefit long standing is you've built up a cash cow here. You're going to be relatively living for free when you get this thing fully occupied. What's the long-term goal looking like in, let's say, the next like 5, 10, 15 years?
Maybe tag teaming with some people, go into deals with like-minded individuals to be able to put funds in together and do rehab renovations such as properties like this and be able to rent it out to people. I feel like that'll be very beneficial for us just to be able to get assistance, because throughout this whole process we felt like we didn't have anybody to talk to or to confide in for what we were going through. One of the things to my contractor is he connected me with the client from Jason who bought a property 2-3 weeks after me. He has the same contractor, and I was able to walk through his property and see how he operates things with the contractor and his renovation. So just to be able to work with people like that, me and my wife very appreciate, because we have somebody else to connect with in the project, because it's harder to do things alone.
I agree. And there's so much power in proximity. You and your wife have your goals, the second kid on the way, you have your own financial responsibilities, you're planning for like growing your portfolio. The power in having that kind of network is that you can springboard your real estate goals goals and reach some of these milestones a lot quicker. And maybe your profit isn't as much because you're sharing it, but you're almost doubling your experience and being able to build equity in more properties, grow a little bit faster that way. Even though you're taking a step back potentially in terms of your earnings from those deals, your out-of-pocket expense is half, right? Because now you have other potential partners. That's dope, man. I'm looking forward to future conversations because I'm pretty sure it's gonna go from this 4 units that you have now to the dozen units, the 2 dozen units, or whatever the case is. Any parting words for somebody, let's say in your situation 2 years ago, just starting to like compile this information, trying to make sense of the New York market?
Yeah, I would just definitely recommend anyone to be patient with the process. Things might not go as planned, but just be able to hold your composure because you just never know what may come at you. Because I went through all emotions. I'm ready to be done with this. I want to sell the house, but just remain steadfast, be patient, and in the long term, it will definitely pay off for you.
That's what's up, bro. I see you're like mild-mannered, you're like focused, you're calm. I could picture all of the crazy headaches going on here, and you just kind of see that light at the end of the tunnel. I definitely feel like in whatever endeavor you go after as an entrepreneur or any business-related venture, you gotta have that because there's always bumps in the road. Appreciate your time today, man.
Problem.
Those beef patties were incredible, man. Appreciate you,
I'm
man.
happy you came by.
Yeah. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe so that you get notifications for future videos.